Major League Baseball officially began in 1903, but the decades prior became the womb that took the game from the playground and birthed it into the forefront of American sports. That is where we find the uncertain origins of the stolen base. In 1845, the Knickerbocker rules were written, named for the writers and founding members of the New York Knickerbocker Baseball Club. These rules used to be considered the foundation of modern baseball. However, there is now reason to believe none of the rules were original at the time they were written. That aside, in the early days of baseball, the Knickerbocker rules were the Bible of the sport. In my experience with strict sets of rules, if it does not say I can't do something, well, then that means I can. I'm not alone in this thinking, and the Knickerbocker rules said nothing for or against the stealing of bases, a fact that Philadelphia Keystone outfielder Ned Cuthbert was keenly aware of. In 1863, Cuthbert decided to put his loophole to the test when he ran from first to second while his teammate was still at the plate. The crowd laughed, thinking he was playing a joke, and the umpire told him to head back to first. But Cuthbert stood his ground and told the umpire there was no rule saying he couldn't do that. I then assume everyone stood there awkwardly staring at each other because that cocky bastard was right. It's hard to imagine that in the playground days of baseball, no one had tried this before. But history has a funny way of picking an event and sticking to it. Ned Cuthbert is widely regarded as the first player to steal a base, even though his file in the Baseball Hall of Fame has no mention of it, and it definitely didn't go on the scorecard, that's for sure. The first mention of a stolen base as a stat wasn't until 1877, and it wasn't consistently tracked until 1886, a year after the formation of the National League. There are also some that credit Cuthbert with the first slide, but there's hardly a consensus on that. Regardless, his influence on the game was far-reaching. He even had a hand in resurrecting a team in St. Louis. In 1880, Cuthbert was bartending at a saloon in St. Louis when a German businessman named Chris von der Eye took a seat at the bar. Shortly thereafter, the whole place cleared out. Surprised, von der Eye asked Cuthbert what was going on. Ned told him that every day around that time, everyone headed down the street to watch a baseball game. It was at this moment that von der Eye realized how well booze went with sports. He continued to talk to Cuthbert, who eventually convinced him to invest in the recently defunct St. Louis Brown Stockings. At this time, the National League had been around a few years and had established itself as the premier baseball league, but tickets were expensive and alcohol was forbidden. So von der Eye decided he wanted to capitalize where the National League was missing out. So he took his team, which he renamed the Browns, and put them in the newly formed American Association, not to be confused with the American League, which had not been created yet. The American Association not only allowed alcohol at games, but encouraged it. So von der Eye slashed ticket prices down to 25 cents, opening them up to a whole new class of lower-income fans. The lower ticket prices also encouraged fans to spend their money on beer and whiskey, which he had lined up for sale on trays near every aisle in the stadium. He also hired his new friend Ned Cuthbert as both player and manager. The Browns took the field for the first time in 1882 and went on to win an early version of the World Series 4 years later. The American Association itself lasted only 10 seasons before closing up shop in 1891. As for Ned and our pal Chris, well, Cuthbert died of endocarditis in 1905. He was 59. Von der Eye, once a wealthy man, went on to lose it all. He became a bartender and died of cirrhosis of the liver in 1913. He was 61. Cheers. Well, thanks for watching. If you liked it, hit subscribe and check out the other ones. Got a whole bunch just for you.
Well, what kind of things could you do for us for the team?
Well, you need some glasses that need cleaning. I will take care of them.
You do love cleaning glasses.
They'll be polished and shined up like you would
I can
not
see
believe.
that.